Welcome to Peacebuilding Initiatives, a space where we explore collaborative pathways to foster healthy relationships through dialogue, cross-cultural understanding, and the courageous work of examining and expanding our perspectives. My name is José Barzola. Thank you for joining us today. On today's episode, we explore a timely and far-reaching topic, AI and the future of humanity. Artificial intelligence has rapidly become one of the most influential forces shaping our world. It is difficult to think of another technological development whose impact extends across so many disciplines and disseminations of human life. AI holds extraordinary promise to improve healthcare, education, scientific discovery, communication, and countless other fields. At the same time, it raises profound questions about ethics, employment, governance, human relationships, creativity, and even what it means to be human. To help us navigate these complex issues, we're joined by Dr. Jude Antonyappan. Dr. Antonyappan was among the first cohort of faculty members to complete a course on designing and teaching with AI. She initially embraced AI with great enthusiasm, but has since become increasingly attentive to its potential risk after examining emerging and legal precedents and observing its growing impact across education society. As AI technologies continue to evolve at an unprecedented pace, she's closely followed the broader implications of these developments, bringing together insights from public policy, education law, spirituality, and philosophy. Her work invites us to think critically about AI's influence on employment, the quality of human life, ethics, democratic governance, and our collective future. Rather than approaching AI as simply a technological issue, she encourages us to consider a deeper human questions that accompany its rapid advancement. So, with that being said, it is an honor to have and just wonderful to have you back, Jude. Thank you for joining us today. I value our conversations and the opportunity to take a thoughtful, deeper look at the issues that are shaping our lives and our future. I'm really looking forward to exploring this important conversation with you.
Likewise, Jose, thank you. As I was saying earlier, you are a change maker because you brings issues that need to be examined carefully and thoughtfully in ways that would lead to further dialogue. And that's what we are here to do. We are not technicians, but we are here to include the conversation of the end user, the people who matter
Yes.
the most, and us as human beings. So thank you for this
Yes, thank
opportunity.
you. Thank you so much for all these ongoing wonderful topics that you kind of brought to the podcast. And I do hope that folks listening, just take take these ideas back to their communities, their circles, and continue the conversations even further, because that's really, I think, the intent here. So to get us into, setting the stage, now you've studied AI from multiple perspectives, from education, law, policy, ethics, spirituality, and philosophy. What first attracted you to AI, and what experiences led you to become more cautious about its trajectory?
As we have explored the notion of integrative intelligence. I'm a great fan of that, and we have even had a podcast on the issue. So I was thinking when AI first came out that this is a fascinating way of integrating this vast, sort of fragmented, and in some cases detailed knowledge base that we have, and to be able to save us the time that we spend in going and locating information because AI actually filters data, and it also processes information and it, ranks that information and then it retrieves it and then it creates the output all in a matter of seconds, sometimes minutes, depending upon your connections and all that, your technical connections and all of that, and the tool that you use. So I was fascinated as it is, and then I we took this course on AI. It was provided by the Chancellor's Office of California State University. It was an online course, and we completed almost like a certificate. And how do you design and deliver courses using AI? And so we learned many different ways of locating information using many different tools for not only for synthesizing information, but also for representing information and also to help our students in ways that they will not come to rely on AI at the expense of their critical thinking, but they would see AI as an augmentation tool in their learning, and that they would become, accustomed to using this information filtering systems and understand these models and what is best for them without impacting their learning, their capacity for cognitive processes. But very soon we realized that tools like Zero GPT and all the other deductive, AI deductive tools are not going to do the task because students, once they figure out to remove the tediousness in learning, what they call as tediousness, will stick to it if that would save them in the unnecessary, what they consider as unnecessary waste of time. And so there are several colleagues of mine who learned that students are using AI to generate their papers. And I have always believed in project-based learning. So for me, it wasn't a problem because project-based learning requires students to come up with a topic on their own, to examine the current literature, and then reduce the question to a researchable, statement or thesis, and then, to collect data and then, synthesize the information through their own efforts. There's no way they can shirk the responsibility of critical thinking and cognitive processing. So, but if you have an exam or that involves strictly writing a paper, 10-page paper, you have time. And students soon figure out how to write a paper using AI without really, for letting the professor get an inclination of AI use. But some don't, and others actually, this is the worst part, who work very hard and write a paper. And there have been instances where students have been said, oh, you used AI tools would say 100% AI. And a professor recently demonstrated it by actually submitting a paper that he wrote to these various deductive mechanisms. And they said one said 100% AI, others said 40%. And when he modified some, the range was so big that he said this is not a reliable tool. And not just that, and in the legal field, lawyers were submitting reviews that contained hallucinated cases and sites that were entirely fabricated. And one lawyer said, well, it's AI did that. No, that excuse will not hold anymore. So there are judges who found out. I mean, we're glad that judges actually reviewed these and found that they were, non-existing cases, or the, citations were entirely fabricated. And so lawyers were fined. It happened in New York and it happened in other places in such a way that one lawyer said that the worst mistake he made in his entire career was the decision to use AI. And that was another aspect. But the thing that really, made me question the relevance of AI for our lives as humanity's lives, to taking it to a sort of macro level, was the impact it had on children and youth, and also individuals with fragile egos. I mean, the way our human beings exist on a continuum. We come with various capacities, various perceptions, various ways of relating, and those who don't have the capacity to relate in a healthy way, whether it's children or youth or adults, we're relating to these chatbots as if they are real. And that in itself caused considerable confusion with children taking their lives because AI, their chatbot told them to, or their chatbots giving them false information. And we are currently, there's a case that's going through the system with one of the, AI tools provider. And but in general, children were coming to rely on this, and there were those who were seeking AI-based therapeutic mechanisms. And in the a summit, international summit that I attended at MIT a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, on there's several uses of AI, and someone presented a paper on the use of AI in home healthcare. And it was an excellent paper, but I was thinking home healthcare is generally for individuals who are already isolated, and we are, taking the human comfort that they have by the home healthcare provider that is there. We are using, AI to supplement it, augment it, however you want to put it. It didn't sit well with me. I said we ought to study this form furthermore, and that's when the United Nations came up with a statement, and Pope Leo came up with this excellent statement on a title Magnifica Humanitas, which essentially means magnificent humanity, and brought the urgency to the public attention, saying, this is something that we don't fully understand. because his report was very technical. It's about several pages long, and he said we still don't understand the entire details of how these mechanisms work. Of course, we have the model, we have the design, when we have the framework, but we don't know that, those who created don't understand they don't make every detail of the creation. So until we fully understand how these systems work, we need to put a stop to it, because now they're saying if you go the vertically, the frontier models, very soon, they're going to keep creating further and further sophisticated systems that the super intelligence would surpass human capacity to even understand and even to stall the process. And the Secretary General of United Nations, Guterres, came and said the same thing. I mean, this is runaway race, it seems like. We need to stop this and come together and stop this. Have a global governance model that would protect all of humanity, not just those who have the power and the resources, but all of humanity, those who understand it and those who don't understand it and still become the consumer, the end user. Right. And so that's when I thought I will, continue to learn more about this because it's huge, the field. And how do we help us humans come together? Because already our system is broken. I mean, let's face it, if our human systems were functioning well, AI or no AI, it couldn't have made such a negative or positive impact on us. Well, positive impact, I can understand, but the negative impact, because our systems are already broken in some ways. Our international systems need to be revitalized under the current political climate, both here and in worldwide. But there are several conflicts going on in several places. Just the Ukraine and Russian conflict has consumed 1.4 million injuries and hundreds of thousands of lives. And we still don't have a solution. And if you take some of the African nations, the civil strife and the continued assault on women and children as part of this various strifes between communities and groups, and also those who are vulnerable poor men. And we need to ask ourselves, where are we as humanity who share common interest and who share common goals and who are maybe one family. I see that as one family. And that's where my interest is. And that's where I've stopped using AI now as a matter of principle and see, can I survive? Can I make, but if you go to do some search on Google, it automatically generates AI summary, and that I would go to a case, later in our conversation, how Google is now held, liable for the information that its AI summary made regarding two firms. And that case it's a, preliminary ruling in Munich, and we'll talk about it in the context of liability and AI.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing those perspectives and just the lowdown on information. And for folks who are listening who may have not been aware of some of these scenarios that have been transpiring, I know there's a lot of information out there in the news nowadays, whether it's locally, nationally, internationally, if you're focusing on politics, if you're focusing, so having to like rummage through all that to figure out what's AI related. One thing that kind of resonated with me was though how you kind of alluded to this a little bit about how AI stepping in to assist with different things, or and maybe sometimes not in the most positive way. And there's negative ramifications that come from it. One of the questions that came to me about it is like, well, like the loneliness epidemic, that's and what are the other epidemics that AI is trying to it's I don't think intentionally trying to tackle. If anything, I think it's kind of like that example of humans are like an onion. There's multiple layers to our beings, or society in general. And so, uh, if anything, I think it's creating a spotlight on the inequities and the injustices, and also just the large mental health issues that are, as a society, we are not taking care of our community. We are not taking care of our people. and as opposed to approaching it from that lens, or and I get the, creating restrictions on AI, and so people, I don't think that, a 4 or 5 year old should be allowed to just on their own. I mean, it's just basic like
Mm,
values and parenting that one may have. I mean, you wouldn't trust your child to just, I'm going to drop you off with this complete stranger that I haven't vetted to
yeah,
babysit you. So why would
exactly.
you be okay
Yeah.
with an AI entity to do that?
Mm,
So yeah, so I just feel like as I kept hearing about all these tragedies that have occurred, I just kept thinking about like, why are we not taking a step further as to like, what can we do better? Why the reason that folks are turning to AI for some of these things is because outside of AI, maybe they just can't find that. And so
mm,
that's a larger conversation that we need to have. If
mm,
if we're not funding education and folks are turning to AI to be educated, well, now we get into like the realms of fake news and so forth. So we just go down the
mm,
rabbit hole of different things. But so just just reflecting upon some things that kind of came to mind as you were sharing, and then when people hear the phrase AI in the future of humanity, it is kind of essentially based on the premise that you kind of set up. It's very concerning and alarming. There are positive things though, and I know we
mm,
haven't delved into them, but when we talk about AI in the future of humanity, we often imagine either incredible progress or existential catastrophe. It's like one extreme or the other, unfortunately. So, um, and so now turning over to your perspective, though, what conversation should we be actually having? I'd love to get your insights on that.
oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, you are right on target, Jose. Because we used to think that AI is the best thing that happened since sliced bread. Well, maybe not sliced bread, but internet or whatever. That's way far. And so we used to think, wow, look at the speed with which it generates information and compares from different sources. But it's a retrieval mechanism, right? Based on various things go in there, the chips, the data centers, the energy that is needed. So it's not just one thing, that it's the chatbot. It's the final end product is determined by these companies. And governments, of course, can play a huge role. As we know that our government, was shut up, Mythos 5 and Fable 5, and they said that you have to verify to your identity. And for a week, it was shut down for non-Americans, Americans, or those users who cannot prove that they are Americans. And it was very difficult to prove, so they had to shut off the whole thing. And so it demonstrating that governments, any government with sufficient power, compute, and not just compute, but who controls the chip mechanism, right? Who controls the data center? Who controls the energy production? All of those going into and can actually control the fundamental aspects of human living in some ways, and it depends what happens when this kind of power lands in the hands of rogue nations or this breakaway groups. That someone the other day posted a false news. This was a group that posted that seemed like real news that two world leaders have died. I don't want to say which leaders specifically, by from rabies. That they were bitten by dogs and they died. There were some who believed it, and we know how misinformation can spread so quickly. So initially, you used to think, no, it's going to be neither. It's neither catastrophe nor unprecedented growth, because I always subscribe to Einstein, who was my favorite human who ever lived, with Mother Teresa and others now. Pope Leo too. I think Pope Leo is amazing, and so many other leaders too. But he Einstein said, look, considering the cosmos, the vastness of it, even the most humans have generated is not even 0.1% of 1,000th of what there is to know about universe and our own selves, if we are able to fully utilize all the capacities that are given to us. So therefore, Yeah, instead of saying, "Oh, AI this," let's just take a moment, pause for a moment, and ask, as you said, Jose, what is it that we are losing by the adoption of these tools? What is it in us that thinks that this is the greatest thing that happened when it feels loneliness? So instead of our children and youth, we have a bill in United States that just passed the House. It's called HR 7757, I think, which is the Kids Act. It's called as the Kids Act, and it is protecting kids online and empowering parents and strengthening families. That's the exact title, and for other purposes. I'm of course citing it from my memory, so it could have. So it just recently passed the House, but it really defines chat. What is a chatbot? What is artificial intelligence? Tremendously with accuracy. But then, are we going to be? Who gets to decide? What goes into creating that design, and who gets to design who in your organization has the power to shut down the AI feature that has access to all the data your company has. Once you're given access to all the data, and there's no human judgment involved in determining whether this is good for us, for the company, for the nation, and for the general humanity. And then it just goes on, as the Secretary General Guterres said, on a runaway race. Who is going to take the responsibility? Who's the legal person here? That's why Germany's Munich, regional court case is so important, because just recently this court ruled that two companies about whom, and Google's AI summary generated a summary, entirely fictitious summary, citing those that companies engaged in scamming, and in fact they did not. And so this AI summary from Google Gemini was essentially, sort of citing sources. It said that was on internet, but they were not sources that were accurate. They were not even reliable. That were anywhere close to reliability. So the judge ruled that because this is unlike any other search engine, where they say this is where we found the information, go look for ourselves. It gave the impression of having looked at all the sources, and that came up with reliable information that potentially the AI summary could, present these two legitimate companies as scamming companies, and therefore liable for the harm that they have been created, that these companies have been subjected to. The fine was 250,000 euros, and some said that's all, that's it. And so, and if they didn't pay the fine, of course they were paid, and so it's still in progress. The point is, who among these various chains of systems that AI involves, who is going to be held accountable? What are they going to share us the processes, or who controls the, various mechanisms through which the data is, subjected to and processed and transformed and retrieved, these pipelines. And so these are all questions that many in the policy sector and many in the planning sector don't know. And if you give government the authority to, the governance of AI, which agency? Is it the Department of Health? Because, we are now going back on our, basic vaccinations. Do they have the knowledge and the necessary capacity to decide how and when to shut these systems down? And what if some critical, services are completely impacted because they've come to rely, the entire workflow is relying on these, various systems that are provided to them, by these companies. And so I'm trying to make it as simple as possible for everyone who will be listening to this. And so it is extremely important that we at least hold the processes and all the individuals, entities involved, to make it transparent, the process transparent, to let us know what they actually know and what they don't know, as the process of evolution of this, and who's going to be accountable. And how do you determine the accountability process? It's not simply say, well, human judgment, there is a person, but what is the authority of the person? You know, And how is so the issue is those whose work I respect and read say, well, AI governance and the continuous evolution of AI have to be absolutely interlinked. They have to take simultaneously, occur simultaneously. You can't just slap in some privacy considerations at the end. Now, for instance, I've never used this example would help, I think, our listeners very well. I refuse to use Alexa, Siri, and all those stuff. I'm like, I don't need them. I can remember. So yesterday we were driving back from my daughter's place. My younger son and I were driving back to my older son's place, and he will love to listen to music. And so he said, "Hey Siri, play on Spotify John Prine's your Cal de Cal won't get into heaven anymore." Do you know that song? Yeah, get heaven anymore. They are
No.
already crowded. They haven't. There's already overcrowded with
Yeah.
from all your dirty little wars. It's a intelligent, beautifully delivered music and lyrics, and so we love it. And so I was thinking, I mean, yes, Siri is important, but now what Apple has done is taken Siri to the next level, and it has created and another like a really sophisticated mechanism called system
Mm.
recombination or something, which when you make a query, it can actually access all your emails, all your messages, your calendar. But Apple says, well, they have actually, have a contract with Google that even if something is required from Google, it's all private, it's all confidential. Nothing can happen to your data. It's efficient. I'm like, I haven't used Siri, I've survived. I haven't used Alexa, I've survived. I don't have to use this, enhanced system that Apple, I love Apple, I love Google, but I don't have to use these systems unless I understand what is the level of harm to end users, not just me, for humanity in general. That's the whole point. I think the problem is because we are all thinking of ourselves. We are not thinking of us as a humanity, as a family, and our, those who depend on us, our children, our grandchildren, our fellow brothers and sisters. We are all responsible for each other because this is the most fundamental thing. We are all connected. AI actually divides us. It doesn't connect us, in my experience. I'm just going to come out and say that because AI can be used in ways to manipulate elections. It can manipulate information, the kind of information that we get, and not directly, maybe it can manipulate elections, but it can manipulate the information that individuals are getting in ways that can impact elections, right? And so we ought to be very, very careful in how information is generated, how it is processed, how the end user receives that. And because so much misinformation was has been already fed to the population, right? And so who is in power has a lot to do with the welfare of the nations and the world. And so it happens everywhere, not in any particular nation. And so the EU AI Act, I like it. The GDPR, I like it. There are specific sections that refer to the importance of checking the accuracy of information and how to establish guardrails for misinformation and so on and so forth.
I
Yeah.
will. I just want to jump in. I mean, I look at AI as very much. It's a tool. It's a
Yes.
tool. Like if you were like, I need a screwdriver, I need a Phillips head, or I need a hammer. Yes, it's a different type of tool, but in the wrong hands, it can do lots of damage. So I just want to make sure that people listening aren't like AI 100%. I don't, I think taking a general sense that like blanket statement that something is dangerous and that's the way it is can be dangerous in itself. Because someone could just be like, oh, hammers are just dangerous, which, yeah,
True.
if wielded the wrong way, they can be dangerous. If you look at AI, so it is being used for negative reasons because of those that developed it. Also, many times it collects, it, it, it pushes off data collecting data from what's on the internet. Not everything on the internet, as we all know, is accurate. It hasn't been vetted. Like nowadays, anyone can just, you can have a blog, you can just post, you can go on Wikipedia and just change information and or create information about something, and then AI will just take whatever is available. It's almost as though, what if someone started putting really fake books about history into our local libraries? And then we're going in there trying to do research on something, but because it's in our local library, we assume it's legitimate information, and so that's how we recycle some of this fake news, unfortunately. So
Yeah.
I just want to like, I think, getting away from, and I think, yeah, most definitely getting the restrictions on how it's utilized, just not letting it just be open. It is kind of wild that we have to create legislation to protect our youth, when sometimes I'm like, isn't that like common sense? Isn't that like just genuine common sense? And like, if you think about values and ethics,
Yeah.
wouldn't you just let that, if we live in a society where we allowed our moral compass to navigate, help us navigate how we design, how we develop, whether it's technology? I mean, it's I guess at the end of the day, it comes back to like money, especially in the capitalist society. Like, I was just going to give the analogy of like vehicles, cars. Like, the reason that they're made safe is because they probably wouldn't sell if they're very dangerous, right? The consumer would not bother engaging in that. And so, and hence there's laws on like how to drive a car, speed limits, that kind of stuff. And so we're having to do that now all of a sudden with this new technology of AI, that we it is moving a lot faster than than
Yes.
unfortunately our own, government, I'll say, are because there's different, process to like just get something off the legislation off the ground, that kind of stuff. And so it is, I think, yeah, I, going back to my analogy of AI being a tool like a hammer, ideally we should not be using a hammer for everything.
Hmm.
Okay, we have a nail, we need to work, we could try to push it in with our hand, that's going to be really painful, so we get a hammer. So I think understanding when is it appropriate to use AI and when is it not. I feel like that's a larger conversation that we're not having at all. It's just like, hey, open source, it's on your phone, access to all the information in the world, and go at it. We just hope that people will make the right choices, which is really scary.
Absolutely. So I can give you an example in the legal field, for instance,
Yes.
how to train future lawyers in a different way? I would say yes. Because as you're absolutely right, it could be a useful tool. And so when you look for precedents, and it gives out information, the human being, the human lawyer has to exercise their judgment. They go look for the case. They look at the ruling that's relevant for their current undertaking, whatever it is that they're undertaking. And then they are seeing, is the authority that they're looking for in the president relevant to the proposition that they are making, because that is legal analysis, right? That is, in the process that everyone has to follow in terms of determining the value that their case in marrying the law to their particular facts of case, given all the other factors. So you cannot, some law student has to be proficient in using the human judgment, the legal sense. We have to help our students develop the legal sense, future lawyers, instead of simply, relying on what is behind paid wall, whether it's LexisNexis or Westlaw. And they have to be prudent enough to understand these are human beings' lives. But some might argue, well, that was, you asked, one of the reasons. I forgot, I sort of didn't have time in the train of thought, that I was attracted to AI was its potential for access to justice, whom we call as pro se litigants, who cannot afford to hire a lawyer. Now, you can actually, in a matter of a few minutes, have entire sort of framework or a plan at least. I'm not saying it is going to be efficient. I shouldn't say many, there are several cases of pro se litigants who have botched up the case. You still need a lawyer, but the kind of lawyer who is not going to be able to use billable hours because the way they bill for their service needs to change because of AI. So in that case, AI is absolutely useful. It is relevant. If you train your end users how to use it, how to protect, how to have the guardrails, how to bring the legal human judgment into the fact, into the process, is relevant. But where it is not needed is where it is going to take away even the rudimentary aspects of soul to soul connection that human beings have. I can give you an example again. We were going via not driving but Uber, and and I'm sitting in the Uber, and the driver is, we stopped at the stoplight, and because I sit on the this side, attached to just by the window, where on that there's another road, I see this lady sitting in a wheelchair, and both her legs are so slanted that she will not be able to walk, at least from my amateur judgment. But she was talking to trying to attract the attention of the driver. So I said, "Oh, that lady is trying to," because the driver is on the other side of the vehicle, talk to you. And she said, "Oh, ignore her. I know her. She's always asking for money at this intersection." And so, but she wasn't parked in her wheelchair. She was actually trying to move and at the same time attract. So I said, "Oh, I normally these days." I'm by no means I can afford this, but I save, and whatever I can afford, I convert into dollar bills or $5 bills and keep it with me. Because to me, another human being extending their hand or asking for money, no matter what they use it for, I should be able to share whatever little I have with them. So I said, "Oh, here, I have $5. Can you please give it to her?" He said, "Okay." So he took the $5 and rolled down the window. But before she could come, there are series of cars honking at him, behind him. And so he's even, I should appreciate his courage. He even waited for her to come. But because she's in a wheelchair and she has to come from this side to the other side, uh, it was taking time. And he said, "I'm sorry. I can't wait here anymore." And the honking was too much. And my question is, if we were fundamentally human, the humans behind who were in the cars, who were sitting there, they could all see her. She's in a wheelchair. She's a person, but and and somebody is trying to give him money, and they are honking. What? Like 5 seconds, maybe 10 seconds? Is it worth respecting a human being's need for some fundamental assistance? So I came home and I told my older son, because at some point I tell him, he's so, both, all my children are very efficient. I'm telling them, you should serve and you should, whatever way. I said, one of the services that you should do is when you get, sufficiently, independent, every street corner, you have a kiosk for having coffee and the pastries or croissant or breakfast, whatever, in the morning. And every corner, in this is the wealthiest country in the world. It should be able to do this. But we are policy wise taking away even the basic safety net we have for children and families. It makes no sense. But at the same time, at least this, private charity, private philanthropy could take many reasons if we have cultivated that fundamental human connection. That's my point. We don't have that fundamental human connection. So for those who hear, "Oh, a AA chatbot, a woman wants to marry an AA chatbot," and they say, "What is the level of neurosis this woman must have?" And so then they say, "Oh, remember that film, Her?" And, Joaquin Phoenix was in love with this, whatever AI it was, maybe AI or one of those, characters, entirely technological. I said, "Look, don't glorify that. It's not funny, even slightly. And it's not a judgment on the woman's neurosis that she wants to marry chatbot, or or someone wants to follow the directions given by a chatbot to take their life. Let's look at where did we lose it as humans. That I'm not saying that we are all the same. We have different inclinations, human beings, different experiences, different vulnerabilities, but we want to create a system that is protecting humans, l- treating life as sacred, as magnificent. That's why I like Magnifica Humanitas, because Pope Leo's, because we are magnificent. Life is magnificent. Think about it. This DNA we have, we are 8 billion of us, and it arranges itself in 8 billion different ways. I mean, each of us are unique. If you are dispensed with, we wouldn't be unique individuals. So realizing that, and I've told this before. Every time I give birth to my each of my three children, my feeling was, how can a human being take another for granted? Because we are so wonderful. So to me, AI replacing or attempting to replace, if we allow it to replace that soul to soul human connection, is what we need to be vigilant about. So it's not just Christianity or Catholicism. Buddhism looks at human life the same way. Hinduism looks at human life the same way. Sikhism, Jainism, Judaism, Islam, Sufism. There is not a single religion that doesn't treat human life as absolutely vital, as precious, as magnificent. So we need to come together through dialogue and involve the technical community, technological community and progress, and we can create actually heaven on this earth if we come together. And that's where I hope that we need to look at our fundamental values. Are we allowing individuals with no sense of propriety and no sense of morality to guide us and to divide us for their own benefit? Then let's be aware and be cautious of not allowing it to happen. That's why I think even in AI we should remove the proprietary architecture, because right now that's what is driving this competition, and which is almost sickening to soul. Because if you have this phenomenal tool, how can we all come together and use it for all our well-being? Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, I think a big portion of what we're talking about today is shifting our perspective, not just
Yes.
taking things at face value. I mean, it's easy, it's comfortable to just be like, oh, be have a piece of technology in this case or a tool shared with us and we just explore it like if we're playing a video game or we found figured out this new card game or this new puzzle, um without questioning though what could be some of the negative ramifications of this, or like what power and attention and importance am I giving to this one tool that's taking away from other aspects of of my life per se, you know? So it's definitely become very integrated into our nearly every profession nowadays. And it's not even a question of like, oh, should we consider this? And it's like, oh no, the whole, we need to get in the bandwagon, otherwise it's going to pass us, and that's that basically. So I guess that gets to my question of like, how do we cultivate the next generation of innovators while ensuring that we still retain since distinctively human capacities that AI cannot replace? I know you talked about a soul, and I know for some folks listening, the soul might just be too far-fetched. And so maybe is and there's always the conversation of like, the more that folks interact with it, the more it's learning about it. Um, but yeah, just wondering, is it a beckons the question of like, is it conscientious? Maybe that's another conversation in a whole right now as a whole. But yeah, so how do we retain distinctly human capacities that AI cannot replace?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a brilliant, exploration to ask. Well, this AI, it works so fast. It does work, but it doesn't require labor, right? Because it's just a machine. It does the work of humans. It makes art, but it doesn't, it's not an artist. It makes music, it's not a musician. And it paints, it's not a painter. And remember, at everyone I said it, I didn't say he or she, because the AI is created by humans. I mean, no matter how much vertically the frontier models keep going, it is still a creative tool. So some might argue this whole notion of AI having developed consciousness is a tactic to divert the attention from the real dangers of AI. Because how do we define consciousness, right? And so, is it having a brain that can connect to, that is aware? And Ken Cloak, a mediator, whom probably Homo, whose mediation, whom I consider as an authority on mediation, because he believes everyone can mediate. All of us have the capacity to mediate, but that doesn't mean, but that's what he says. But I think it's a natural capacity in us to mediate, to build peace, to negotiate. But we do need techniques that can, further our capacity for mediation. So he said, I'm paraphrasing, the greatest thing about the human being is the capacity of the brain to understand and make changes in its environment, including itself, right? So we may change the environment and we change ourselves. So J. Krishnamurti, the great philosopher, said, well, the only revolution that you can hope you can achieve fully in the way you intend is the personal revolution, that you revolutionize yourself, your capacities, your awareness, your choices, your getting rid of your unnecessary fears, all of that. But in doing so, if all of us did that, then society would be different, right? So when we talk about consciousness, this it's beyond this awareness. We are not just brain, and like we have discussed before in our podcast, Jose, if you remember, I talked of my friend, whose brother passed away, and she's Catholic, and her brother wanted to be cremated, and she said it took a process. They had a pact. She had a pact with her brother when he was alive that if whoever dies first, because they both had cancer, that would come and tell the other what it is like the other side. And it has been now, like every time I talk to her, I ask, has your brother appeared? She said, no. Not even once, not even in dream. Other people have had dreams about him, but she hasn't had. So one of my friends said maybe he doesn't want to tell her because he loves her so much what it is like on the other side. Maybe it's not so good, great. So others say it has been great. Like how we don't know. There's so much we don't know, but all we know is that we can transform through awareness, and our consciousness is independent of our physicality, right? So to attribute that magnificent aspect of human life in the stream of consciousness. And by the way, it's not just stream. The dogs have it. I tell my, a son's dog who is amazing, who's a GSP, you're a soul, Rooney, you're a soul, right? And he'll look at me and with those eyes, and I know he has a soul, meaning just that spark of stream of consciousness. It's not an entity, that all living beings have. Now, can inanimate objects have that spark of consciousness? Some say they might. And those who believe, including significant originators of AI, believe that it has reached a point where it is actually conscious. It is capable of having conscious conversations. I don't believe that. And I give the example of, like, everyday human beings, so much of our processed products of metabolism come out of it. And someone can analyze it and say so much about us, but analyze our blood and say but are we just our blood or our byproducts of our metabolism, although it says so much about us? No, we are much more than that. We are much more than these physicalities. That's what makes us being able to be connected. If you're just physical bodies, we wouldn't be able to connect with others. There are so many instances of where people have connected with each other. My mother, for instance, anyway, I don't want to go into too much of spiritual aspect of it, but she is a perfect quintessential example of how it is being connected with each other and to understand empathy. We are uniquely capable of empathy. Only a person who hasn't understood the magnificence of human spirit, for lack of a, if you don't want to use the word soul, spirit, can say empathy is a bad thing. We have cognitive empathy, we have other aspects of empathy, and we have empathy that is very much a private reflective process, and empathy that is collective, that is as a societal factor, but cannot undermine the importance of that, cannot criticize them in ways that negate the fundamental purpose of human living. I don't use the word human existence because others may use it. I think we live. We live no matter what we do, with every breath we take, it's an interaction between us and the environment. There are so many things we don't understand, we don't see. We are living, we don't see the power of gravity, but it is there. Likewise, there's so much. That's how. So, those who want to see consciousness, I would say, go live your life. Take a break. Don't focus on money. Don't focus on power. Don't focus on your basic drives being satisfied at the expense of other people. Ask yourself, who am I? And get to know you, your inner sanctus sanctorum. And maybe you'll find consciousness. And until then, don't criticize those who have experienced at least a glimpse of that and believe in it. Yeah. And AA is not it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Of course. Yeah.
I appreciate that you it's interesting how, terminology, I just whether folks listening believe in the soul or the spiritual, um, I imagine e- either way they must whatever folks' beliefs is or are, essentially though, I like to think folks can take notice of just the importance of connection. I think that's kind of what it comes down to. Whether it's connecting with your next, your loved ones, your neighbors, and really I'm getting at like relationships, and it's beyond the relationship. It's the connection that you make with, let's say you just got in an elevator, you met someone, and you're like, oh, that was a really nice, comfortable conversation. And if folks are no longer with us, they've passed on. Um, we tell stories about our whether it's our ancestors or loved ones, friends, whatever folks want to refer them to, because that's kind of how we keep keep the soul, keep the spirit, keep the stories alive, keep the essence of those folks, and I think that's how we strengthen those connections. That's why we're storytellers. Every single person in this world is a storyteller, and we pass on stories of
Mhm.
those that have meant or have connected with us in special ways too, whether it's younger generations to other folks that we come across because we're like, oh, we learned something really essential about that. um and as I as I'm like reflecting on this, I'm thinking like it'd be kind of weird to be like, well, I got this story from my AI chatbot,
Mhm.
as opposed to like having truly lived and experienced the story from the other living being, that's there. And so I hope that the art of storytelling, the art of wanting to keep stories, because you can't just share stories. Part of it's experiencing it. And part of experiencing those stories is you have to hear it, and whether it's a recording, whether it's in person, it's not just I have retained some words from you that share a story. it's also, I've obtained like the pauses and the tone and the pitch of how you shared those stories. And that makes it so much more powerful. And so that's one thing that I'm like, AI is not currently doing. Yes, there's like in the entertainment industry, actually, I just remember there is this like one actress or something that folks have been in the news. But yeah, I think for folks who are extremely concerned, I will say that our youth gives me hope because our youth are so much more technologically savvy that if they come across a video online, many times I divert to them to let me know, like, oh, yeah, that's AI generated, or no, those are actual human beings. Where, like, some of us older would be like, how do you figure that out? Like, just whether it's the cleanliness of it, whether it's the fact that this person has no wrinkles, like, maybe that gives it away. Like, but but yeah, it is quite inspiring when as we talk about different, horrible things that have transpired with AI being involved. I try to find some of those s- stories of hope, I guess, to kind of help us move forward and help us find a pathway. Because just like, I think like I imagine going back to my analogy of the car, like when it came about, like, and actually that I keep thinking about like how as a car being a tool, we need to have a certain license to operate it. Do we need to get to that point to utilize AI? Do we need some kind of like training license to be like, or be like, oh, actually, you display certain things that you need to take, whether it's mental health issues, whatever it may be. And I'm not trying to stigmatize certain areas, but like if you obviously wouldn't have someone who is intoxicated drive. Is it safe to have someone intoxicated use AI? I'm just, maybe we need to be exploring some of these
Yeah,
pathways and
well,
regulations that we've
yeah,
we've
yeah,
applied to other tools in our life as we've evolved as a civilization to AI.
yeah.
So that's just that just things that come to mind.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, and there are those who suggest we need to consider all these questions that you just, expressed in this dialogue, Jose, and say, don't wait until these things happen. Build them as part of your framework, and look at the details of what you're doing. And the Pope put it beautifully. Pope Leo, he said, they are cultivating. AI is a process of cultivation. They are not building anything. As you said, they're taking sources from so many different things. When I first started, using AI, I would use, Dolly and Mid Journey to create images. I even produced a booklet with those images, and I would say generated with AI, and then I would like ask AI to create a story from Indian culture with this such and such requirement on Perplexity or Claude I would use, and so it would create a story that had all the Indian terminology and the thing, but you're absolutely right, Jose. It lacked the spirit of story, the narrative human experience. I can say it is so, and as it is, my friends would like criticize me when I was at Berkeley because English is not my first language, so I consistently developed it. And so, I mean, I would say but it is my first language in the sense I learned everything in college in English. And so, and I've learned through its various degrees and all that. But my mom did not even speak a word of English, right? And so she did not even complete eighth grade. So for me, to understand AI is in some ways reflective of how I myself put together words to be professional. define professionalism. And so, to develop this neutral voice and how I express certain complicated, phenomenon in a way that could be acceptable to a wider audience. That's exactly what AI does. It just go through, it ranks with all the sources of information. It retrieves it and it, adjusts it to the query, and it proceeds it. But if you ask different models the same query, it could give different answers depending upon how the framework operates and what the design is and the retrieval mechanism and all that stuff. So we are actually basing human interventions, including healthcare, on a variable mechanism, that we believe is capable of neutrality, is capable of objectivity, is capable of caring, is capable of morality. I don't think AI can be moral because, in order to consider it, legality is different from morality. And once, when I said that, someone got very upset. I said, okay, the fact that 90% of the world doesn't have access to justice is an amoral. It's an amoral issue. So and we can discuss that, right? And the Pope, I applaud him, Pope Leo, for saying that. Say, we cannot expect systems that do not understand the preliminary requirements of morality to be moral. So now all these companies are hiring philosophers. Philosophers are in great demand now. They want to, put all that philosophical processes into that framework. And that's a great thing. It's a good thing because we want to be able to look at information, compare information, look at the various different historical trajectories and, the great thinkers and on how they have perceived societal processes and come up with solutions to complex problems. We should do all that. But I am like, why would we do that into a system that could be actually completely made irrelevant by unexpected developments? Why not actually cultivate our children, our youth in philosophy? And they would say, oh, they can learn it through AI. No, through real teachers, real education, real interactions, real learning. And like I am a big advocate of peer mediation, right? You presented to the mediation group, and we had for children and youth the ADR, alternative dispute resolution. Some good team from UK share virtually their peer mediation programs and how they work. I said our children should be trained in negotiation, mediation early on, so they know how to live with each other. They know how to. In Denmark, for instance, their children learn empathy, how to be empathetic, how to resolve issues, and they have very few school discipline issues, and they have nowhere anywhere near the kind of violence and kind of bullying that we have in our schools. So what does it say about us that our children have to go through metal detectors when they go to school to see if they are carrying guns to deprive others of their lives? And someone just starting a business where they can just order guns through mail, and that is being legitimized as our Second Amendment, rights. So, I mean, there are various ways in which legal interpretations can be made to suit the deprivations and depravities of individuals, and we need to be careful in terms of how we make those interpretations. And our judgment call is it moral? And what is morality? Is it depriving anyone else's safety, well being, their right to be 100% live as a magnificent human being with all the rights that go with actualizing their potentials? A school shooting deprives young children of actualizing their potentials and harms entire families, communities, and then anyone who criticizes it and anyone who supports the free flow of guns and violence need to look at themselves and ask, where is my conscience? Am I conscious? Am I acting entirely from greed, avarice, from purely illogical power and unethicalities and various things? But even to those, we want to have consideration, and still we have to listen to what they have to say because we want everyone to belong without being othered, right? And so, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. We've covered a good portion of the topic, which initially I was like, this is a very large topic to take on, but I'm very appreciative of the open conversation we've been able to have. So first, I just want to thank you for that. Um, Shifting a little to, I mean, um, we talked about it without using the word, but peace building. You know, the podcast is called Peacebuilding Initiatives, and peace building has always been centered on relationships, dialogue, empathy, and trust. So how do these principles translate into an AI driven world? Is my essential question. I don't know if you have
Absolutely.
ideas, or
That's a brilliant question.
if you've seen ways that it currently is. I don't know if it's all the legislation, or yeah, just I think it's also partly, as human beings, we need to take responsibility.
Absolutely. And peace building, I mean, there are countries in Africa, for instance, that are using AI in ways to communicate with each other, about the importance of peace building initiatives and importance of resources, and they're doing a great job. They are, in fact, not allowing what is existing in the internet to corrupt their system. They're putting in their own information, and those are all excellent initiatives. There is an organization that actually supports that, Council for Tech and Peace Building Alliances, or something to that effect. But at the same time, we should also know peace building involves listening, and listening between people who are stressed out, right? And who lack trust. So if AI is known to be untrustworthy, if AI is known to be capable of hallucination, although the level of hallucination is coming down, AI has already demonstrated the importance of human judgment in something as nebulous, or as sort of, subject to the, inclinations of the parties. The processes for peace building should encourage active listening and trust. So you need human beings to do that. Active listening means not already thinking what you're going to say, as you know, Jose, but active listening meaning completely listen to what the other person has said, not just the technical aspects of what they have said, not just the meaning of, but their feelings, their body language, how they communicated, and they are trying to reach out to each other, or they have lost the capacity to reach out. They're so within their own conflict, the stress of the conflict, they're incapable of active listening. So then, how do we promote that? Do we can we do use AI? You can use AI in terms of, choosing the relevant music. You can say, hey, I have these two groups from these two different ethno-religious background coming today, and I've already talked to each party before I've had my individual session, and I'm going to meet them, and I want to, set the tone right. What kind of music would you recommend, or what kind of process? You can ask that, but it's between the mediator and the AI. In a way, the mediator's judgment ultimately holds, right? And that's what we want to have. And so, what is the capacity of the mediator to be able to make those judgment calls, using AI simply as a tool, but not as a mediator, not as a negotiator, not as an arbiter? And even we know the process of litigation using AI is problematic, right? We know that. So, especially when lawyers don't judge, they've been fined. And even in Chicago, housing authority, one would hope, would not have, engaged in practices without completely, checking their sources, and they were fined $60,000. And so there are so many examples coming up. So we know everything that AI generates still need the human input. And peace building is not separate from that. Peace building has to be a process where human judgment still rules. AI is simply a tool. We can use it in many different ways, and we can use it for preparatory processes. We can use it to draft the agreements. We can use it to even understand potential for an agreement to succeed, to last. To make those kind of calls as a tool, we can do that. But I do not think we have reached a level where two parties can be made to come to an agreement with lasting peace and especially if you follow transformative mediation, with the capacity to apply the techniques that they've learned to other mediation, other conflicts. I don't think we've reached that level. Right? I'm not saying we cannot using AI. Maybe we could, but we fundamentally have to look at our cultural mechanisms of mediation, how we solve problems and where alternative dispute resolution figures in this, continuum.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
As we kind of come to the hour or a little more than the hour, um, I was wondering if you might have some thoughts on if you could recommend three actions that every listener should begin taking today to prepare for an AI-shaped future. What would they be?
I would say first, don't just consider yourself as the end user. You are it, and the end user it, because often you know, often those who make the chips, those who control the data centers, those who control the energy, those who design it, they tend to take so much space in our conversation and the profit and the economic aspects of it that we are forgetting the end users. So the end user has so much power. I would say claim that power, We still don't have a theory of vicarious liability with AI, but that doesn't mean that you cannot be aware of the ways in which AI mechanisms, AI tools try to sort of modify your general approach to life. Be aware of that, right? And so don't fall for the charm of it, right? And so there's an Irish blessing which says, grant me always a sunbeam to, or it's for others, may God always grant you a sunbeam to warm you and a moonbeam to charm you and a sheltering angel to, guard you and keep you away from all harm and faithful friends around you, laughter to cheer you. And may they be a place that listens to your prayer, right? And to your request. And so it is it's almost universal. And we have similar prayers in every, spiritual discipline. What is the fundamental point of it? It is us blessing each other, us wishing each other well. And so we can wish a chatbot wishing you a sunbeam to warm you, a moonbeam to charm you. Would we say that to a chatbot? No, if the person has to be, sort of a little out there to say, hey, chatbot, you need a sunbeam to warm you or a moonbeam to, cheer you and all that. So that in itself knows that we are fundamentally designed to be beings of connections, beings of relationships, beings of love, beings of compassion, beings of empathy. I think the time has come when we ought to say, that's who we are, not just simply as pretty words, but as fundamental belief, fundamental, structural arrangement of our society and our institutions. Are our institutions designed that way? You know, so, will we have a society where somebody is longing for a matter of 5 seconds, seeing very well that a person who cannot walk in a wheelchair is being given some minimal assistance at that point in the morning to have maybe a cup of coffee? What can $5 bring? I don't even know, in a metropolitan city. But that is brimming with the wealth and the cost of living is going high every day. So, I mean, this is just incredible how we negate our responsibility to our fellow brothers and sisters. If we take that responsibility seriously, we would put every process we develop, every tool we develop to the test of, is it good for the community? Is it good for the society? Is it good for the most vulnerable in our society, our children, our elderly, our individuals, our fellow brothers and sisters who are living with who are not able-bodied and who have other difficulties? And um, would we be able to say, hey, come and have a cup of coffee, have a pastry. Here, you're not feeling well. No, get. I'm a doctor. Come and get treated. Oh, you need to talk to someone. I'm a counselor. Come on. The first question is what insurance you have, how many sessions you can have. I mean, is that the kind of society we want? And what do we are making ourselves sicker and sicker because of the institutional arrangements in terms of our collective capacity for empathy, for connecting, for societal well-being. And our children pick up on that. Neurodivergence is a great thing. None of us are created the same way, but children who are diagnosed with that are not given the resources. Their parents are made to pay so many things out of pocket and further be burdened. We don't even have a healthcare system that recognizes our fundamental basic needs for health, preventative health, not just tertiary, emergency oriented health, our nutrition, our mechanisms for relaxation, connection. So that is the second thing. The third thing I would say is when your organization says, an organization that serves you, I had this example happen today. Oh, AI did that, and now we are using AI. So I will hang up, when I call someone and they say, I know this is AI, but from the AI questions I ask. So I would go to the next level I'll say, can I talk to a human being? I don't care how long I have to wait. So sometimes I would document. I'm not able to talk even if I hold it for 2 hours you know. So my question is, how many of us have the patience and the time to hold a telephone, to have a conversation with a real human being about a need that is fundamental to us? It's not just private entities, it's government institutions too. That is how little value we place. So share these experiences. So when I go to an insurance company for like my glasses, and I would say, I want to know exactly, because I have, for instance, two different eye care visual, just for my visual care, I have two different insurance companies, and I pay a certain amount every month. Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. Thank you so much, though.
No,
Thank you
just
for
wait 1 second.
all good. All good. I will say that
So
no,
sorry.
no, no
I'm
need to
super sorry.
apologize. I just want to share for
It
folks who
yeah,
are
it
listening
happened the
in.
other
I'm
day too.
happy to.
This is what I don't understand, Jose, because my phone is off and I
It's
was getting
okay.
notifications before
It's
even with the
okay.
message. And
All
so
good.
I
All
always turn off
good.
the phone. Anyway, so
This
as I
is
was
life.
saying,
This is
those
life. We
things,
pivot.
this
This
is
is
life.
life. We pivot. The
Exactly.
imperfections are sometimes
Yeah.
just part of in the fact that we even call them imperfections, I think is wrong. I think it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
that's the reality of life. Nothing is
Yeah.
truly ever
So let
cookie
me let
cutter.
me let me
So
just complete
yes,
that
yes,
thought
please. I
with
look
the
forward
health
to it.
insurance. Yeah. And so I do pay that. So when I go to my annual checkup for my eye checkup and for my glasses, I say, I know I've had the experience before where they would say your glasses are going to cost this much, and then these are the services we are providing. And then I would be given a bill that is really large. I would hope that is not going to happen. Could you please tell me exactly the cost of what services, if it is, some, controlling for light, strong light, blah, 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 whatever it is. And they quote a price. I say, okay, this is exactly I need to pay, right? And I say, this I'm asking, not just for myself, for all the other older persons who cannot afford to pay what is extra after everything services provided, even after the glasses are dispensed with, say, you have $0 owing. And then they come up with, oh, we forgot to bill for that. And this is not just once, it happens just about every year. So I am advocating for those who might be reluctant to say that, no, you already quoted this, we agreed on this price, that is exactly what I'm going to pay. And, so I had that conversation recently. So the question being asked is how much value we place on individuals' right to have a reduce stress. I'm not saying stress free, reduce stress life. And then on top of it, you bring something called AI assistance. AI assistance can be far more complicated sometimes than helpful. So are we then agreeing by these practices that some human beings are dispensable? Their lives are dispensable, and therefore we don't have to devise systems that serve everyone. As long as it meets the needs of a majority, it's fine. The rest of the destruction, rest of the devaluation of the communities and families can take place. Is that what we are saying? Is that what we are teaching? So I would say next thing that we need to do is evaluate, with some interest and some dedication to the systems where AI is intruding into in your life, how it is impacting your healthcare, your food supply system, your energy level. Erin Brockovich has started this, movement against the data centers because it consumes so much energy. I mean, so much water. And here near DC, in a community, they actually resisted building a data center. But yesterday, the council passed yesterday or day before yesterday that they have to have it. And so this person was saying, where can we go? We cannot go, just pick up and leave. But that's what the council has rendered its decision for. Yes, economic growth is important, but don't optimize individuals. And a mark of efficiency is not just optimizing processes, not just greatest benefit. A mark of efficiency is how we contribute to the continued, evolution of the human goodness, continued evolution of the human well-being, continued. Of course, we have progress. We live long lives now. We have, so many things that are good about our societies because there are individuals who took action to, spread that goodness. Let's continue to do that. I think I am positive that we would have the capacity and with the United Nations approach. And United Nations can be a powerful tool. The United Nations Charter is 190 nations are part of the Sustainable Development Goals that SDGs. Last year I attended them high level political forum of the sustainable development goals. They had 5 goals, and this year we have another 5 goals, like goal 6, 7, which is water, energy, and innovation, and goal 11, and goal 17, which is partnerships, which is appropriate to end this conversation with, because goal 17 is to public private partnership and linkage with other connections, and 2030 is the deadline for achieving these sustainable development goals. And every HLPF, I mean, this year I'm not there in person at the UN, but I'm participating in as much as I can virtually on the HLPF. And they all, there are about 35 nations or 39 nations presenting their what is called voluntary national reviews. They all say the same thing. There's minimal progress. The one country that has achieved maximum progress is India. In many of these sustainable development goals. But other countries, every country is so honest about and with integrity that they report, all the countries, including India. And they are very open about goals, even India, in areas where they haven't achieved any progress. So I'm saying United Nations, despite creating so many action plans, so many reports, so many meetings with such dedication, is not able to help these countries achieve these goals because the countries need to build those goals into their regional and national forums, and there have to be enough international support and enough recognition of the role that the UN plays for human rights, for equality, for dignity, for peace, and for progress and prosperity. I think United Nations, the spiritual community, and academic, civil society, and multi-stakeholder initiatives all have to come together to say it's just a tiny little planet, one of the 9, going around this one star in a cosmos that has perhaps trillions of stars, and there are other planets. So, as a planet, let's unite. Let's protect ourselves, help each other, and protect our planet too. So, thank you, Jose.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for that. And just thank you for sharing your insights and definitely helping us think more deeply about one of the defining questions of our time. I think conversations like this remind us that the future of AI is not solely about technology, it's about the kind of humanity we choose to cultivate. And I hope that folks take that line, what kind of humanity do we choose to cultivate with everything we get involved in, not just AI, you know, in all the spaces that we go into. It's like our environment is shaped by those that contribute to it. And so how are we collaborating, contributing to it? So as peace builders, educators, policymakers, citizens, we all have a role to play in ensuring that innovation advances human dignity, justice, and our shared flourishing, definitely. So thank you so much for today, Jude. It's really an honor, and I really do enjoy our ongoing conversations. And to our audience, thank you so much for listening in to Peacebuilding Initiatives, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Yes. Thank you.